Imagine a maze so vast, so intricate, that once you entered, you could never find your way out. Now, imagine something terrifying lurking within its shadowy corridors, a creature born of divine rage and human pride. This is the story of the Minotaur, the half-man, half-bull trapped in the heart of the labyrinth. Welcome to Timeless Europe, where we journey back through the ages to uncover the continent's most captivating myths, legends, and historical tales. Today, we're venturing to the sun-drenched island of Crete, to the magnificent palace of Knossos, where a king's arrogance set in motion a tragedy of epic proportions. Our story begins with King Minos of Crete, a powerful and ambitious ruler. To solidify his claim to the throne, Minos prayed to Poseidon, the mighty god of the sea. He asked for a sign of divine favor, a magnificent white bull to emerge from the waves, which he promised to sacrifice in the god's honor. Poseidon, pleased with this display of piety, granted his request. A bull, as white as the sea foam, walked gracefully onto the shores of Crete. But when Minos laid eyes on the creature, he was mesmerized. Its beauty was unparalleled, its form perfect. Greed and pride clouded his judgment. He couldn't bring himself to sacrifice such a magnificent animal. So, he decided to keep the white bull for his own herds, and sacrificed a lesser bull in its place, hoping the god of the sea wouldn't notice or wouldn't care. He was gravely mistaken. No mortal could deceive an Olympian god. Poseidon, feeling betrayed and insulted, was filled with a cold, calculated fury. He decided to punish Minos in a truly cruel and unusual way by turning the king's own family against him. His vengeance would not be swift, it would be a lasting curse, a permanent stain on Minos's legacy. Poseidon's curse fell upon Minos's wife, Queen Pasiphaë. The god afflicted her with an unnatural and overwhelming desire for the white bull. Consumed by this divinely inspired madness, Pasiphaë sought the help of the master craftsman and inventor, Daedalus, who was then serving in Minos's court. She commissioned him to build a hollow wooden cow, covered in real cowhide, so she could hide inside and approach the bull. Daedalus, perhaps fearing the wrath of a desperate queen, complied. The result of this cursed union was a monstrous offspring, a creature with the body of a powerful man but the head and tail of a bull. It was a terrifying hybrid, a living symbol of the queen's shame and the king's hubris. They named him Asterion, which means starry one, but he would forever be known to the world as the Minotaur, the bull of Minos. As the Minotaur grew, so did his ferocity and his appetite for human flesh. He was an abomination, a source of deep fear and shame for King Minos. The king couldn't bring himself to kill his wife's son, but he couldn't allow the monster to roam free. He needed a prison from which there was no escape. Once again, Minos turned to the genius of Daedalus. He commanded the inventor to design and construct a structure so complex, so bewildering, that it could hold the monster forever. Daedalus built the labyrinth, an enormous, sprawling maze of winding passages, dead ends, and confusing turns, constructed beneath the palace of Knossos. It was a masterpiece of architecture and a perfect prison. The Minotaur was cast into its dark center, condemned to a life of solitude and darkness, his roars of frustration and hunger echoing through the stone corridors. To feed the beast and assert his dominance over the surrounding lands, Minos imposed a gruesome tribute on the city of Athens, which he had recently conquered in a war. Every 9 years, Athens was forced to send 7 of its finest young men and 7 of its most beautiful young women as a sacrifice. These 14 youths were sent to Crete, led into the labyrinth, and left to wander its halls until they were inevitably found and devoured by the Minotaur. For the people of Athens, it was a cycle of sorrow and despair. Years passed, and 2 tributes had already been paid. As the time for the 3rd tribute approached, a young hero in Athens decided he could no longer stand by and watch his people suffer. This was Theseus, the brave and daring son of the Athenian king, Aegeus. He volunteered himself as one of the 14 tributes, vowing to his father and his city that he would enter the labyrinth, slay the Minotaur, and end the reign of terror once and for all. Upon arriving in Crete, the Athenian tributes were presented before King Minos. It was there that Theseus caught the eye of the king's daughter, Princess Ariadne. She was immediately captivated by his courage and noble bearing. Fearing for his life and falling deeply in love with him, Ariadne knew she couldn't let him face the labyrinth alone. She secretly approached him, determined to help. Remembering the labyrinth's architect, Ariadne sought out Daedalus for a solution. The clever inventor, perhaps feeling a pang of guilt for his role in the tragedy, gave her two crucial items: a sharp sword to fight the beast and a simple ball of thread. He instructed her to tell Theseus to tie one end of the thread to the entrance of the labyrinth and unravel it as he walked. This simple trick would create a path for him to follow back out after his mission was complete. That night, Ariadne met Theseus at the entrance to the maze. She gave him the sword and the ball of thread, confessing her love and making him promise that if he survived, he would take her away from Crete and make her his wife. Theseus, moved by her plea and grateful for her aid, readily agreed. With the thread tied securely to the entrance, Theseus plunged into the oppressive darkness of the labyrinth, the silent prayers of his fellow tributes following him. He ventured deeper and deeper into the maze, the air growing thick with the stench of death and the unsettling silence broken only by the distant, guttural bellows of the beast. Finally, he reached the heart of the labyrinth. There, in the gloom, was the Minotaur. It was a fearsome sight, a hulking figure of muscle and rage, a monster driven mad by years of isolation and hunger. The battle that ensued was brutal and primal. The Minotaur charged with immense strength, its horns sharp and deadly. But Theseus was quick and agile, using the sword Ariadne had given him with skill and precision. He dodged the monster's attacks, looking for an opening. In a final, desperate struggle, Theseus drove the sword deep into the Minotaur's heart, ending its tortured existence. Silence fell over the labyrinth. The beast was dead. Following the life-saving trail of thread, Theseus navigated his way back through the winding passages to the entrance. He gathered the other Athenian tributes, and together they found Ariadne waiting for them. They hurried to their ship and set sail from Crete, escaping the wrath of King Minos under the cover of night. Their victory, however, was soon tainted with sorrow. The reasons are debated in different versions of the myth. Some say the god Dionysus appeared to Theseus and demanded Ariadne for himself. Others say Theseus simply abandoned her on the island of Naxos while she slept. Whatever the cause, Theseus broke his promise, leaving the princess who had saved his life behind. And the tragedy didn't end there. In his haste to leave Athens, Theseus had made another promise to his father, King Aegeus. He had told him that if he were successful, he would replace his ship's black sails of mourning with white sails of victory. But in the turmoil of his escape and the guilt of leaving Ariadne, Theseus forgot. King Aegeus had been waiting anxiously, scanning the horizon day after day from a clifftop. When he finally saw Theseus's ship approaching with its black sails still raised, he was overcome with grief, believing his son was dead. In his despair, he threw himself from the cliffs into the sea below, which ever since has been named the Aegean Sea in his memory. So, Theseus returned to Athens not as a triumphant hero, but as a king who had inadvertently caused his own father's death. The myth of the Minotaur is a powerful tale of pride, punishment, heroism, and heartbreak, a timeless reminder that even the greatest victories can come at a terrible price. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of the labyrinth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tales from Timeless Europe. See you next time.